Hey, welcome to Cabin Fever. I'm Jake Barrier. Today I've got the Texas guru, the guru of high school football in the state of Texas, and that's Matt Stepp from Texas Football. Matt, thanks for joining us today.
So, Jake, anytime I can do anything with the Rio Grande Valley football fans, it's always a pleasure. I love visiting the Valley, love coming down to cover games. It's one of my favorite parts of the state, so it's an absolute pleasure.
You know, it's been an interesting off season
Yeah.
for the entire state. What's it been like for you?
So far it's been about the same up to this point. Now the rest of the off season is going to change quite a bit with 7-on-7 being canceled earlier this week. That announcement came down, but up to this point it had been pretty much the normal thing. So basically my off season goes, I take a couple weeks off after the state championships. And then in January, the coaching clinic season starts, where I make my way around coaches' clinics. We do interviews at various clinics and meet up with the coaches and do that kind of thing. And kind of went through that. And then I actually went on vacation with my family. And when I came back right at the 1st of March, that's when the whole coronavirus thing kind of blew up and took place. So during this time of quarantine and staying at home and being safe and, doing what I'm supposed to be doing, listening to our elected officials talk about what we need to do. I've been listening closely and been at home a lot. But the good thing is that we've been able to work on the magazine. And this is kind of the season that we really do the bulk of the work for the summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. That's progressing greatly. We're on schedule for an on-time release for that. So it's been a lot of magazine prep. So normally I would have been home a lot anyway, working and doing all the high school capsules that I work on. So up to that point, it hasn't been too different. But I think in the next couple of months, I'm going to go a little stir crazy without getting to come out and watch 7-on-7 games.
You talked about the magazine. You guys are almost done with the magazine. How complex is that? Because you guys do both college and high school. Your forte is the high school ranks, but there's a ton of high schools. How do you guys cover all that?
So our managing editor, Greg Tepper, does a great job. He's a really organized dude. He loves spreadsheets. Let me tell you, he is an Excel guy. He loves spreadsheets, and he does a good job of really taking everything that's in the magazine, breaking it down into smaller pieces, and then assigning out those projects and having due dates and working on that. So from that perspective, it's a lot, but it's really well organized, and we've been doing it long enough now where it's kind of a well-oiled machine. We send out the questionnaires to the coaches. Really late February is usually when we get them out. We try to get a good batch in before spring break, and then from that point on, we kind of just constantly update each other. Hey, which ones are we missing? Which coaches do we need to reach out to and get those questionnaires in? So if you're a coach, you haven't turned your questionnaire in, you need to get it in quickly because we're getting close to the deadline. But our coaches in the 956 have really done a good job of getting their questionnaires in. I think we've gotten almost 100% of the Rio Grande Valley schools in. So, and then on the college side, it's kind of the same thing, just on a little different level. We have to reach out to the SIDs and do those kind of things for the college information. But we've got a group of our staff, which is, myself, Greg Tepper, Ashley Pickle, Will Wilkerson, Ishmael Johnson, and Shehan Jayaraja, all kind of take our part. We also have some contractors. We contract out things to writers that have worked with us in the past. So it's a large group, but it's a labor of love, and we look forward to putting the magazine out every year and putting something out that Mr. Campbell, who is still with us at 93 years old in Waco, would be proud of.
You talk about all the work that you put into it. Which one do you prefer? Do you prefer doing high school or college?
Well, I'm a high school guy. I don't really deal with the colleges very much. Maybe just some editing, hey, take a look at this, see if I missed anything, that kind of thing. There is a little crossover with some of the recruiting stuff and that kind of thing, but we've got a great recruiting writer in Greg Powers of Next Level Athlete who we contract, and he handles a lot of the recruiting. So the bulk of my work, I'd say 98% or so is high school for me. I'm a high school football guy. Even on Saturdays, I'm at a high school football game on Saturday. I enjoy college football, don't get me wrong, but if I got to pick, I'm going to be at a high school game, and then I'll just catch up on the college stuff when I get to my hotel room and watch SportsCenter on Saturday night.
This wasn't your first stop. You didn't start at Texas football. You actually, I've known about you for a long time, especially on the forums. Everybody would talk about Matt Stepp when you were at the old coach. How did this whole thing start? How did your process from where you were to Texas football start?
Well, it started well before that. I went to college, to actually be a coach, and I did some, volunteer stuff when I was in college, that kind of thing, and I really felt like I wanted to be a coach. My degree is in kinesiology, so that was really what I wanted to do with my life when I was in college. And then, I just realized doing my student teaching that being in the classroom just wasn't something that I liked to do. And you being working in education, anyone who works in education will be able to tell you that if you don't love being in a classroom, you don't love what you do, you're not going to get rich doing it. So you might as well go do something else with your life that you actually enjoy doing. I got out of the education industry, started to get into the finance industry. I have a full-time day job. I have a full-time gig in the finance industry. I enjoy it. I've always enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun, and I enjoy what I do, but I still wanted to be around high school football. So this is back in, gosh, Jake, 04, I guess. I mean, I've been around a while. I'm getting old. I'm getting up there. I guess in 04, just posting, this is before Twitter, before Facebook. This is like when message boards, it was all about the message boards. And so people would talk about different high school football games, and I would get on there and reply and make these real long replies and almost like game previews. And I guess luckily, a lot of the times I knew what I was talking about, and my predictions were coming true, and people were like, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. And so a gentleman by the name of Alan Zepeda, who ran a website called Texas Prep Extra, which at that time was part of Rivals.com, big recruiting network. He ran Texas Prep Extra. He brought me on and said, hey, would you like to come on and be an intern, basically? We'll give you a media credential. You can go watch the games for free. And I was like, that's all I don't want to make any money. I just want to do this. And so I got to go to games for free and started kind of being a DFW writer with a guy named Matt Diggs, who still works out there. He works for the old coach now still. We tag team DFW. And it kind of started from there. And, the site grew and we started to expand a little bit, kind of into the fringier areas of DFW, Abilene, Tyler, Waco, kind of getting about an hour outside of Dallas and kind of incorporating more teams. And, kind of grew. We moved over to a different network, and eventually we left that site and started working for the old coach, which was part, Rivals left. We left Rivals and went to Scout.com, which now is part of 247.com. All this, movement in the internet, right? In the internet age of recruiting and internet team sites. Well, while working for the old coach, I was, kind of covering mostly Dallas. I ran into a gentleman by the name of Carl Padilla from the Padilla poll, who's a Rio Grande Valley legend. He got his start down in the valley, down in Weslaco, actually. He's based out of San Antonio now, but he got his start down in the valley. And Carl was like, Carl's, he's kind of a mentor, I guess you could say. So he's got me by a few years, but he was like, Stepp, if you really want to do this and do this right, you got to cover the whole state. You can't just be a DFW guy. You got to cover the whole state. And so I was like, I've always loved high school football and I've always wanted to be around it, and even outside of Dallas. And so he kind of got me into covering more of the state. And I think that's really what covering the whole state and covering the coaching changes and developing those contacts really is what has helped me through the years with my coverage and kind of building up my network and my sources. Because as you know, coaches are a fickle bunch, and they're hard. They don't trust very easily. And so if they can put a name to a face, and you're not just a voice on the telephone or just an email address that shoots them an email, but if you can actually meet those guys, shake their hands, and get to know them a little bit better, it really helps develop that trust and building that relationship. So starting to do that, I started to travel the entire state. And that's really where I think I kind of made my name as a guy who will go from, the Rio Grande Valley to Amarillo to Houston to El Paso, whatever the case may be.
So I have to imagine your frequent flyer miles are pretty good.
Yeah, Southwest Airlines likes me a lot. They get a lot of my business, and hey, Southwest Airlines wants to sponsor me or sponsor this podcast, let's make it happen. I love flying Southwest Airlines, and they take care of me, and I'm able to get around the state pretty easily. And I definitely fly into Valley International Airport down there, Harlingen. They know me pretty well down there.
Now, speaking of that, they know you really well across the Valley. I've been in San Antonio when you've been there, different places where you've been. We went to Laredo together one time for the playoffs. Yeah. What is it like, though? Because, you've grown in notoriety. Like, there's coaches that are like, oh, Matt Stepp's coming. They want you to come to their game. What's that been like where, when you pick your game that you're going to go to down here in the Valley or San Antonio or Corpus area, what's that like for you? Do coaches openly request you to come to games or say, hey, come to our game?
So some of them will politic a little bit. And I don't know why, because I'm like, coach, it's not going to, me being there, I'm not that big of a deal. I'm just going to be up in the press box probably just working. I don't like a big spectacle made. I mean, I appreciate the hospitality. Anytime someone makes special arrangements for me or has a spot for me in the press box, it's always really appreciated. I get some ribbing on Twitter, especially when in August, when I kind of put out my yearly schedule and kind of tweet it out. Guys are like, hey, you should have went to this game. Why are you going to this game? You need to come watch us play. Or if I don't have a school on the schedule, they're like, oh, Stepp, you're too big time for us now. You won't come to watch us play, that kind of thing. So it's usually good-natured ribbing for sure. But, when I come to a game and someone makes a special arrangement, I'm super appreciative. It's definitely not required, but I'm really appreciative of it. And I enjoy the hospitality for sure when someone welcomes you to their stadium. That's one thing, especially about the Rio Grande Valley, that I've always really admired is the fact that when, you come down to cover a game, they find out you're from out of town. The people in the Valley are so welcoming, and they really make it a point to make your experience there a nice one. And you don't want for anything down there. It's great. I get people coming by, hey, you want something to eat? You need anything to drink? That kind of thing. And I think the folks in the Valley are they're that way anyway. But when someone from out of town comes to see their teams play, because high school football in the Rio Grande Valley is such a big deal. You guys don't have a college team, not yet, maybe soon. And you don't have, the Cowboys are the professional team in the Valley, really. So your high school teams are a really big deal. So when I come down there to watch their teams, the folks that are really proud of their high school football, and they're proud of their community, and the high school football is a reflection of the community. So it's an honor to be able to experience that with them, not being from the Rio Grande Valley.
I've got some stuff I want to ask you, but I'm gonna wait on this. This is a little poll or your favorites. I'm gonna ask you that in a little bit, but I kind of wanted to talk to you about some of the things that coaches, fans, players are wondering right now. Is what's your take on the whole COVID-19 and where we stand next season? Does it look like we're starting on time?
So this is just my opinion. I am not an expert. There are people that are way smarter than me that are handling this, and this is my hot take here. We should listen to people that are smarter than us. If our elected officials and the doctors and the scientists say we need to stay home that for a little while longer, then we need to stay home a little bit longer. It's April 22nd, and I'm itching to get out of the house and go eat some chips and salsa at a good Mexican restaurant. Really bad. I want to go do it. I want to go eat some barbecue, and I want to do all these things, but I'd rather sit and wait because I don't want to jeopardize football season. Because I feel like if we sit and wait a little bit longer and let this thing play itself out, I think we'll have football season. I would say, are we gonna? So the 7-on-7 has been canceled. The next big event that we have coming up on the calendar is coaching school in July, which is going to be in San Antonio this year. I would say we're probably at about a 50-50 shot to have coaching school at the end. It starts July 19th. I'd say we're 50-50 there, just because it's a big event. There's 20,000 coaches, and I don't know how great I feel about having 20,000 coaches in a big convention hall. We might want to hold off on that. But, if we have it, I'll be there, and I'll enjoy it. As far as the season starts, so the next big date is August 3rd. That is when the teams are allowed to practice. And this year, because there was no spring football, everyone's going to start practice on August the 3rd. I would say starting on August 3rd, I'd put it about 75%. I think that we're going to start on August 3rd. And I think as far as starting the season, week 1 on time, I'd say 75%. As far as whether there's going to be restrictions. I don't know about that. Hopefully there's not, because I think having high school football with no fans in the stands or very small crowds really it ruins the impact of it, and it just ruins the atmosphere a little bit. So I'm hoping we don't have to have that. But if it means that or having no football, I'm going to choose that every time. But the UIL, they're working really hard. They've got some contingencies to where the season has to start a little bit later, those kind of things. They're working through those contingencies, and I think they'll have them ready. So I'm pretty sure we're going to have football this fall. I'm hoping we have a full, 16-week season from week 1 all the way to state championships. So I'd say 75% right now.
Okay, because I know a lot of people are wondering it, and they take what you say as very meaningful. If it comes from me, they're like, you don't know anything. But, and then when we look at this year's realignment, what was your take on realignment for this area? Because, you've got some changes. The McAllens went down.
So I think the biggest thing, number one, is let's start in 6A. The Rio Grande Valley goes from 3 districts to 2 districts, which I know we had talked before realignment. We kind of expected that with the McAllen schools dropping down to Class 5A, Division 1. So you've got now 2 really large districts that are, in reading through some of the questionnaires, a lot of the coaches are very, wary, because these districts that were a little more spread out evenly, now there are these 9-team bears. You got 31 6A with, the Edinburgh schools and Mission and La Jolla's and Rio Grande City, whatever, they're 5A, but La Jolla, Edinburgh, I think maybe PSJA's in there as well. It's a big 9-team district. And you think Vela and Mission are probably the 2 teams to beat in that district, but that district, especially last couple of years, 36A has been really there's been tiebreakers every year. And it's been a really balanced district. So I think those last 2 playoff spots are really going to be hotly contested in districts now 31 6A. And then in 32 6A, it was already tough because, you have Harlingen South. You have Weslaco now moving in, who's going to be really good next year. It just made that district even better. And then, you got Brownsville, Hanna, who I think could bounce back and have a good year as well. So, and San Benito. I mean, they're all Coach Gomez's team is always really tough. So that's a tough district in the lower valley as well. So I think you've got 2 really deep districts that they're going to start district play really early. And I think the competition, especially for those last 2 playoff spots in both districts, will be really heavy. I think in 5A Division 1, the big news is the McAllen schools and Weslaco East dropping. And I think with the setup in 5A Division 1 Region 4, I think you have the best chance that I've probably since Harlingen had their great team in, was it 2010, I think, when they went 13-1. This is the Valley's best chance to win a regional title. Because Region 4, 5A Division 1, I think the Valley matches up even with the teams from the Coastal Bend. I think teams like Weslaco East and McAllen Memorial are really going to be legit regional contenders in 5A Division 1. So I think that's the region you have to think is the best chance for a team from the Valley to get out of Region 4 and play in a state semifinal. I think the big news in 5A Division 2 dropping down is Mission Vets dropping from Division 1 to Division 2. I think Mission Vets drops in with a team that should be the favorite to win that district down there in 16 5A Division 2. But the opposite, 5A Division 2, Region 4 is pretty tough. You have to go up into Austin to get out of the region there, whereas in Division 1, it's 2 San Antonio districts, the Corpus District and the Valley District. So I think Division 2, even though Mission Vets is going to benefit, I think, by being the big dog on the block, it's still going to be tough. That district has always got good teams with Mercedes, Ned Couch, Elsa, those kind of teams year in and year out. But also in the playoffs, potentially the bracket, I think, is going to be tough as well.
Well, that's good because we talked about that earlier that Division 1 was going to have the best shot. Some coaches in Division 2 have told me that just what you said was that Murderers Row once the playoffs came, and it was going to be extremely tough. Now, here's the question I did have for you, and this is one of those things that I wanted to ask you. In the state of Texas, your top 5 places that you like to go eat if you get a chance. It's a tough question. So
specific restaurants or parts of the state?
Okay, parts of the state. You don't have to give me a restaurant. Just give me a part of the state.
So number 1's the Valley. When I go to the Valley, I've got my places to eat lined up. I know where I'm going to go, and I'll take some suggestions and try to find some new places. But the Valley is number 1 for me. It's awesome. Number two, I'd say, is probably Houston, just because Houston's such a good food town. I mean, you could find anything and any type of food, and it's probably going to be really good in Houston. The Valley has Houston beat because I can take less than $10 and go eat really good food in the Valley. You know, I can take $7 or $8 in and I'll be full. Houston, you got to pay a little bit more. That's just part of the deal of the big city. Number three is probably El Paso. El Paso is very similar to the food culture as to the Valley, but it's got a little bit more big city to it, so it's not as cheap as the Valley. And they're a little more, the Valley I think still has it's a different type of Mexican food, especially in the Valley versus El Paso. I think that's because of geography, but it's still really good. El Paso is more closer to like New Mexico flavored, kind of New Mexican style food at El Paso. So El Paso is probably number three. Number four, I'd say Amarillo. Amarillo is a little bit of an underrated food town. Yeah, they have the famous place, the Big Texan Steak Ranch, where you go eat the 72-ounce steak and you can get it for free if you eat it. They've got a lot of underrated, really good restaurants in the Amarillo area that I really enjoy. And then I'd say number five is probably San Antonio. San Antonio is a great food town as well. I always find good places to eat on my travels there. And I live in Dallas-Fort Worth, so I'm not going to mention Dallas. Dallas and Fort Worth has great food as well, but I live there, and it's not as much fun to eat when you're at home. It's always more fun to eat when you're traveling.
All right, next little poll, I guess, is who are the top 5 players that you've covered from the Valley since you started in 2004, or that you've seen, I guess?
Well, that's a good question. So definitely, I'd say Landry Gilpin, Trevor Spates. Trevor Spates probably. Wait, is Trevor the one that was at Stanford?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'd say Gilpin, Spates. I think Marburger is really good. I really loved watching Eddie Lee Marburger play this year. I get to watch him another year, so that's awesome. Man, Harlingen had a kid the year they were really good in 2010. I think he was the receiver. He went to Cal on a track scholarship.
Oh, Brady Bermea.
Yeah, he was awesome, and I really, really liked watching him play. And so Spates, Gilpin, Bermea, Marburger, and then I have to say there was Brownsville Hanna had a defensive tackle the last couple. He graduated, I think last year he graduated. Brandon Esteves.
Oh, Esteves, yeah.
Brandon Esteves. He was an undersized defensive tackle, but man, that kid was awesome. He was, and the Amarillo Tascosa 2 years ago went to the state semifinals. They couldn't block Esteves. He ruined that game when Hanna upset Amarillo Tascosa down in San Antonio. He was just a fun defensive tackle to watch. That's probably my top 5.
All right, and if you could pick a moment from, and this can be our last one right now, but if you could pick a moment that you can remember, your most memorable moment covering sports, what was that moment? It doesn't have to be in the Valley. It could be anything.
Oh, the Duncanville North Shore Hail Mary. That's the one. I don't know. I don't know if I'll ever see anything like that again as long as I'm walking this earth. And to be able to catch that and be at that game and be in that moment, it'll be tough to top that for sure. That was pretty special.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time to come on with us, tell us what you think about realignment, COVID, and the ramifications that are coming up. But anything you want to pitch on the magazine?
Yeah, so Dave Campbell's our summer edition of Dave Campbell's Texas Football will be out. We're on time. We'll be looking for it. We'll be out in stores in June. If you want to get it early and you don't want to have to go out to the store and pick it up, you can go to texasfootball.com and become an insider, and we'll mail it to you as part of your subscription package. You get access to a lot of other cool things on the website. But I think the cost of the magazine it almost pays for itself. But you get access to a lot of other great things, including our podcast that Tepp and I do. We call it Tepp and Stepp, Tepper and I. We do an insiders-only podcast weekly during football season and during the off season every 2 weeks. And we really get kind of in depth and kind of get into some stuff that we wouldn't get into publicly, especially when regarding coaching changes and things like that. It's a good insiders only podcast that we do. We call it a nerd cast because you got to be a high school football nerd to enjoy it, but we try to make it worth everybody's while. So those are the two big things, but definitely we're looking forward to putting the magazine out and getting it in everybody's hands.
Oh, before I let you go, how's it been with some of the coaching vacancies? Does it look like we're going to fill those up pretty soon?
So I think, the obviously the coronavirus has really impacted how schools are handling coaching changes. And I think you're seeing a lot more internal hires than you normally would because of the familiarity and then them not having the off season. I couldn't imagine having an off season and bringing in a guy from outside to come in and take over at a job that he doesn't. I've talked to coaches who've been hired who haven't met their kids yet, and they don't know when they're going to have a chance to meet their kids. They're doing everything on Zoom meetings and stuff. So I think you've seen a lot more internal hires this year because of that. But I think in the Valley, everything is filled. But Progresso, I believe that's the only one that's open. And I've been in touch with the athletic director, and I anticipate maybe this week that they'll have their head coach. Well, I guess Port Isabel's open still. So that's another one that's open. Progresso should be filling up, I think, this week. And I'll be interested to see what happens at Port Isabel because they probably need to hire a guy here pretty soon.
Hey, Matt, thank you for joining us, and I appreciate this. It's a big moment. As you could tell on Twitter, everybody was all pumped for your for this interview. Well,
I appreciate it. Like I said, I have a ton of respect for the level of football that's played in the Rio Grande Valley. We are big fans of the Rio Grande Valley at Dave Campbell's Texas football. I think Ishmael Johnson will be coming down to the Valley this year, maybe for the Battle of the Arroyo. So that'll be a really cool thing. He's never been to the Valley, so I want you guys to take care of my guy Ish, show him all the good places to eat in the Valley, and I'll probably be down there as well. I can't go football season without visiting you guys in the Rio Grande Valley.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.